Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today I want to talk to you guys about one of the most important number 2s in the entire Star Wars galaxy. Yes, I'm talking about the lumpy and blue Mas Amedda, the chagrin politician who essentially runs the day-to-day operations of both the Republic and later on the Empire. Like most number 2s, Mas Amedda is not much to look at and generally not all that interesting to talk about. I'm actually surprised that we've even done a video about him here. As Vice Chair of the Galactic Senate, his job was to run the procedures of the Senate and keep things orderly. Now that might not sound like a very important job, but then again, most people don't really understand just how much of an impact this blue-horned alien had on the collapse of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. And so today we'll be taking a closer look at Mas Amedda's actions and highlight 5 ways in which he really does help Palpatine reach his final goal of creating the Galactic Empire. As the Speaker of the Senate, the Vice Chair is in charge of making sure the bureaucratic procedures of the Senate do not overwhelm its ability to legislate and adapt to new situations. In practice, someone like Mas Amedda should be forwarding the agenda of his Chancellor, Finis Valorum. Here was a man from a famous political family who had great intentions and compassion, but was utterly naive when it came to political matters and actually executing his vision. Vice Chair Mas Amedda basically controlled how Senate hearings went, and it was well within his power and right to basically give more voice to allies of Finis Valorum, but instead he chooses to be objective and follow rules and regulations to the T. This might seem like the right and reasonable thing to do, but most vice chairs did show favoritism towards one side or another. In practice, what Mas Amedda was doing here was making sure that Finis Valorum's Senate would be as gridlocked and inefficient as possible. When Chancellor Valorum calls for a special session in the Senate to hear about updates about the Naboo crisis, the idea was to hear from both parties and figure out a swift resolution to this conflict. Queen Padme Amidala, who had just recently escaped our own home world to reach Coruscant so that she can address the Senate, made pleas for help and aid. Her people were dying and being oppressed by the droid armies of the Trade Federation. Of course, Lot Dodd of the Trade Federation objects and says that Queen Amidala has no proof that this is actually happening, and the Senate should send an independent commission to Naboo first in order to better understand what's going on. Now, this motion was quickly seconded by the representative from Malstar, who most likely had business dealings with the Trade Federation. Finis Valorum is about to answer, most likely reject this objection, but then he himself is interrupted.
Into the bureaucrats, the true rulers of the Republic, and on the payroll of the Trade Federation.
We're not really sure what Mas Amedda says in this situation, but it's most likely something along the lines of, hey Finis, we gotta really follow procedure or else chaos will ensue. No matter how obvious the Trade Federation's transgressions against the Naboo are, the Senate must still investigate and send their own independent team there to kind of figure out what's going on. You can't just listen to one side and not the other. This is completely reasonable for Mas Amedda to suggest. It shows that he's neutral and impartial. The only thing that people don't realize was that Mas Amedda had been working closely with Senator Chief Palpatine and Senator Orn Free Taa. They had actually fought to place Amedda in the vice chair position in the first place to tie down Valorum and make him as powerless as possible. By doing this, Palpatine was able to convince Queen Amidala to put forth her vote of no confidence in Valorum, which was ultimately his goal. Amidala was an ally of Valorum. Heck, Palpatine was an ally of Valorum. And that was because Finis Valorum was genuinely a nice guy. And so Palpatine didn't attack Valorum directly. Instead, he blamed everything on the big scary blue alien with the horns coming out of his head, a role that Mas Amedda was more than willing to play. A lot of people assume that Mas Amedda was evil and power hungry. But the truth is he considered himself an honest politician, and he did want to serve the people. He truly believed in the system and had a fondness for procedure and rules that made him an excellent number 2. His lack of ambition for the chancellorship and his competence in running the day-to-day procedures within the Senate and also within the galactic government is what saved him from being killed by Palpatine in the first place. More importantly, Senator Palpatine was an unknown quantity, and so having Mas Amedda, a veteran politician, stay on as vice chair gave a sense of stability that assured the galaxy and the Senate that things would be okay. In the beginning, Mas Amedda didn't really know what to make of Chief Palpatine. In many ways, he tried to influence the Sith Lord without realizing who exactly he was dealing with. Ultimately, Palpatine was several steps ahead of his chagrined vice chair, and so he would implant his own ideas into Mas Ameda's head. For instance, when Obi-Wan Kenobi discovered the massive Separatist droid army in Geonosis, the Republic was thrown into chaos. The lack of executive power and gridlock in the Senate meant that the Republic would not be able to respond to this threat in a timely manner. The Military Creation Act was in the works, but it was being heavily contested in the Senate. Even the discovery of the Separatist droid army couldn't speed things up that much. You still had to make deals, finish the legislation, and then execute it. And so Palpatine would implant the idea that someone needed to propose an amendment to the Galactic Constitution that would give Palpatine immediate emergency authority so that he can pass the Military Creation Act and take on other executive privileges that would allow him to respond to the Separatist crisis. It really was the only way that the Galactic Republic could defend itself from the Separatists. Mas Ameda agreed to this and thought this was the best course of action for the galaxy. But as the Speaker of the Senate, he could only convince other senators to put forth such a motion. He himself did not have the power to propose amendments. Luckily, Palpatine was from Naboo, and he still had ties to the relatively stupid junior senator from Naboo, Jar Jar Binks. And Mas Ameda knew exactly what to say to goad Jar Jar into doing what he wanted.
But what senator would have the courage to propose such a radical amendment?
If only Senator Amidala were here.
You see, at the time, Padme Amidala had been targeted by assassins, and so she was taking a vacation on Naboo. This left the junior Senator Binks in charge of the entire Chommel sector's vote. Jar Jar Binks has a lot of responsibility resting on his shoulders, and the combined suggestion from Palpatine and Mas Ameda pushed Jar Jar to make the proposal for a constitutional amendment. Of course, that's what Palpatine thinks. It's very possible that Jar Jar Binks is the Sith Lord who has masterminded everything. When the Clone Wars officially starts, Palpatine has Mas Ameda set up the Strategic Advisory Cell and then direct it. This was a government organization that was directly in charge of implementing new strategies and technologies to advance the Republic war effort. Made up of 150 members, including some of Palpatine's closest advisors, prominent senators, and also industry leaders. The Strategic Advisory Cell, or SAC, was responsible for many top-secret weapons projects, including the earliest versions of the Death Star, which was handled by Lieutenant Commander Orson Krennic. Every member of this advisory board had to sign an oath of secrecy. The organization was completely void of Jedi and pro-Jedi senators and would essentially become the backbone for the Empire's military-industrial complex once the Republic and the Jedi fell. As the head of the Strategic Advisory Cell, Mas Ameda's main job was to coordinate efforts between various groups. Like Orson Krennic's Special Weapons Group, the Commission to Protect the Republic, the War Production Board, and the various branches of the military. Projects like the Death Star program were massive and had ridiculous logistical requirements, which all needed to be kept top secret. This was really a job that only Mas Ameda could handle. It was also Mas Ameda who would sanction the rescue mission of Galen Erso and bring him into Project Celestial Power, aka the main Death Star laser program. Now, I'm not really sure if filibusters are a thing in the Galactic Senate, but you don't really need a filibuster when you have thousands of senators and millions of worlds represented in your republic. And Mas Ameda knew about this better than anyone. Now, on the surface, just like Palpatine, Mas Ameda would appear objective and neutral in almost every situation. If Palpatine or Mas Ameda wanted to block a certain bill or a certain voice, Mas Ameda would instead use the bureaucracy of the Senate to drown out discussion and delay the signing of bills. As the war dragged on, Mas Ameda would work hand in hand with the militarist wing of the Senate, who wanted to increase government spending and grow a permanent military-industrial complex. When Duchess Satine Kryze travels to Coruscant to protest a Republic military intervention on her planet, it was Mas Ameda who would call her out for her pacifist ideology. When the Trade Federation blockades the planet Pantora, like they did with Naboo, the Pantoran Senator Ryo Chuchi brought forth evidence that the Trade Federation was working with the Confederacy. Mas Ameda would allow the Trade Federation to stall the Senate hearings and prevent any action from lifting the blockades. And when Padme Amidala attempts to back-channel a peace negotiation with Senator Minaban Notori from the Confederacy Senate, it was Mas Ameda who suggested that Minaban Notori's intentions were not that good.
Obviously a tactic to lower our defenses and launch this attack.
This was right after the Separatists carried out a terrorist attack on the Coruscant power grid. Needless to say, Mas Ameda's accusations seemed pretty truthful at the time. In many ways, Mas Ameda was the perfect number 2 for Palpatine. He wasn't an individual who desired that much power for himself, and he kind of remained in the background, and whenever he did do something, it was very low-key and not noticeable. Without Mas Ameda, I don't think Palpatine would have been able to do half as much as what he wanted, because his actions would have attracted way too much attention. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section below what you think about Mas Ameda. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.